Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to episode fucking 5 or something of our D&D Quest Log. I haven't actually done a full game with the guys since the last episode that I recorded here, but what I did do is a one-on-one session with my brother because his character in the last game session was asleep in some kind of nightmarish dream state. So I kind of wrote something up. I was like, this would be a neat way to explain what he was dreaming about that would occupy him for the entire length of a game. And he happened to have a couple days of time, so he came over for an afternoon. We spent about 4 or 5 hours playing, and basically this is what happened. So I'm just going to kind of detail it out here. So it started out where he had been standing guard while the rest of the party was sleeping. That was the whole deal. He was going to stay up while the rest of the party slept, and then when they woke up in the actual game, when the party woke up, they found him sleeping and really restless and stuff. I described that in the last video. So, from his perspective, what he saw was he was standing up, guarding the group, whatever, and then kind of heard from the direction of the staircase leading downstairs, kind of like a muffled, but like pained, brother, help, or Duran, something like that. Some kind of calling out to him. And so, he took a couple checks, so he couldn't figure it out. He rolled like a 2, and I was like, okay, you hear something, but you don't know what it is. And but anyhow, basically what would happen is he would hear this, and then he would kind of pursue where the sound was coming from, all guarded and stuff with the shield up and sword drawn. And every time he would open a door, he would see a foot kind of like going through the door. Like imagine if you open a door and you see the last glimpse of someone walking through an adjacent door, someone in front of you. So he couldn't make out who it was. And the entire time there was kind of like a black haze or a black fog around the borders of the entire game state, or like wherever he was in the building or outside or whatever. So obviously, after a certain amount of time, he found out that it was Chul in his dream, kind of always walking away from him, which was odd. But it started out inside the magic shop where they were, where he was in the last session, and then he follows Chul outside. And once he gets to the gate, going from the inner district to the outer district, he opens Chul goes through the door and closes it as Duran's running after him, and he gets to the door and opens it, and as he opens the door, he opens it and he's in a wilderness, like in the middle of the woods, with no idea where he's at. There's snow falling, the wind's whipping, it sounds like there's a storm coming, and he had to take some checks, found some tracks, and walks up or follows the tracks to a sheer rock wall. Now he took a perception check and passed it. Looks to the top of the rock wall, and there, what he can see is like the very tippy top of like a doorway for a cave. It's not a doorway, but like the opening for a cave. Now, when he first opened that door and found himself in the wilderness, he stood there for a second. He's looking around trying to get his bearings, and he heard that same, brother Duran, help, the beckoning, the pained calls from. Well, at this point, he already knew it was Chul. So he gets to the rock wall, and he gives me athletics checks to try to climb it. He got halfway up the first time, slipped and fell, and then had to fight 5 wolves, I think it was, he fought, and actually crushed them. He did really well against the wolves. So then he kills the wolves, all but one. The one wolf takes off into the woods. He takes another check, climbs up the wall, makes it to the top, and then he's in the cave. So he gets to the cave, and he hears, it's still that black haze, and it's kind of falling all over everything, and it's really kind of creepy, but it just reminds him, it's clearly at this point it's a dream. He doesn't know it yet, his character doesn't realize it yet, but it's, everything's kind of dark, and there's a lot of sort of like in-game demonic imagery. For instance, he fought, just in total in this cave, he fought an imp, a shadow, and one more thing I'll tell you when we get there. But anyhow, so he gets through the door, and the whole time, in the very beginning, when he was in the magic shop, he saw these spiders crawling up on a wall, and didn't do anything about it at that point. No problem. He gets into the cave and sees the spiders again. Ignores them. Walks past it, and as soon as he walks past the spider, it jumps off the wall and morphs into an imp. So then he fights the imp. And I'm not entirely certain, but I'm pretty sure that the imp... this was like a week ago, so I don't remember all the details, but I think the imp did a number on him. So then he ends up going farther down into the cave, and makes, I think it was a right-hand turn, opens the door, and there's 4 skeletons around a pedestal holding like a large gem. So he fights the skeletons. They do a bit of a number on him too, so he's hurting at this point. He's used a couple of his spell slots. He's used a couple of this, a couple of that. He's feeling it. He walks up to the gem. All right, first of all, after he kills the skeletons, he did a perception check. I gave him what's in the room. So it was basically a this gem in the center and then a large font in the back. Or not large, but a medium-sized font with some, with just like a watery substance in it. He didn't know what it was. He didn't pursue it any further yet. But as he touches the gemstone, he found himself transported, or like, I don't know how to describe it, but he found himself standing in his own shoes in a past time. He didn't know exactly where he was. He was a little disoriented, but it all looked familiar. So he gave him a perception check, and he passed it. So basically, sidebar here. When Nathan and I had decided to make our own universe, when I made Chul as a character, when I was playing him before, he was like, "Oh, I'll make we'll make his brother, we'll make him Duran, and then we'll have them have like a bond that they've established over years and years and years of growing up together, training together, fighting together, etc." And we basically said that they would have been part of a four-man, whether I don't know if squad is the right word for it, or clan, or group, or whatever. So they're part of a four-person group. And the other two people we had decided had died in some fashion, but we hadn't come up with that yet. So I took this as an opportunity to kind of flex my creative muscles a little bit and say, like, okay, so this is a dream, he doesn't know this at this point, but he's figuring it out as it goes. So he touches this gemstone, and he finds himself in his shoes from a past memory. And he recognizes this as, it was a cave that they had, the four of them, Chul, Duran, and the other two, which their names were Inzul and Strulnu, which I kind of made them up. Inzul was a fighter, red dragon born, excuse me, and then Strulnu was like the mage. She was a female silver dragonborn. So they are looking for artifacts from like the dragonborn history. So basically, they're out tracking down these different artifacts that would help them to understand their history and where they came from, etc., etc. So as they're in this cave, they're looking around and stuff. So like in the game, we're jumping from set piece to set piece, which was interesting and kind of fun for me to run. And he said he really enjoyed it, and we both had a great time doing this. But he went from in the cave, touches the gemstone, finds himself all of a sudden sucked away to a different cave, like a different set of ruins per se. And he comes down, and there's four. I have it written down somewhere, but I'm not going to try to find it. Actually, that's a lie. I am going to try to find it. Because it's right here on top. Excuse me. So this is where he finds himself. Okay. So they came in here. This is like a staircase, or like a door that leads through, and this is a staircase leading down. And then there is that centerpiece right there. There are four sets of staircase leading up to the center in a large chest, which it's clearly already open. Those circles around the outside are large braziers with fire burning in them to keep it lit. So, Strulnu walks down first, and they kind of split off going around each side of this large, I guess, raised platform, let's say. They go around each side of it, and as soon as Strulnu walks around the side, she sees a golden half-dragon come straight, like heavily armored, battle-hardened. This is a veteran. Like this is a bad news NPC. Come around the side, and then combat starts, and they fight. And they start fighting, and eventually throughout the combat, Strulnu gets killed. She gets basically, I think, what was he, Red Dragon? Yeah. He was the half dragon was gold. I'm sorry, gold. But he has fire breath, so it's basically the same thing. So he breathes his fire breath on both Inzul and Strulnu, because basically the two NPCs of their group had gone on one side, and then Chul and Duran had gone around the other side. And it just so happened, like I didn't plan this, but it just so happened that the half dragon came around the side of the NPCs. Breathes his fire breath on both of them. Inzul is a red dragon as well, so he's resistant to fire breath, but Strulnu is silver and is not. So she gets just crushed immediately. So she goes down. And as like this fight's going on, as she gets killed, he snaps out of this memory. So like he jerks away from the crystal, and he's back in the cave. So he kind of gathers his wits about him, and then continues through this cave. And he ends up going through. I have the map right here, so I'm just going to pick it up so I can look at it. He continues, and he's checking all these different doors, and going very slowly, very meticulously, and checking all these doors. And he walks down another hallway and finds a second doorway, and opens the doorway, and there's another crystal up on a pedestal with staircases leading up to it. So he walks, I mean, he has an idea at this point, he knows what's coming, so he walks up these stairs, touches the crystal, and is right back to the battle, immediately where he left off. So, as the battle progresses, they continue to fight. Chul, Duran, and Inzul are still going at it. Basically, what had happened is the half-dragon was getting beaten down here, but doing a number on everybody. So, basically, if I'm not mistaken, what had happened is it was the half-dragon's turn. Now I kind of embellished this because I had the ending in my head, but he attacked, passed, stabbed Inzul through the chest, and picked him up kind of like with a great sword, up to the chest. And as he picks him up, I had Inzul take an attack roll because he was next in there anyways. So takes the roll, passes it, and uses his fire breath. And basically, as he's picked up on top of this dragon, breathes fire into his face and just melts his face right off. Which was really sweet to describe because the half-dragon was gold, whereas Inzul was red. So they're both resistant to each other's breath. But he hit him so hard that it didn't even matter. Just cooked him. And that was like the death of the party. And or the death of the two other comrades. So that's what kind of forges the bond between Duran and Chul, is that there was 4 to begin with, and now it's just those 2. So, I mean, it kind of explains why Duran is so intent on finding Chul, or figuring out what happened to Chul in the main campaign. So after this happens, after they both die, Duran tries to heal them, or tries to do something to help them, but can't. So, you know, they both pass, and then he snaps out of the memory, and he's shaken by the memory. It's something he's repressed over years and was really upset by it. So after this, he continues down the path, and he keeps hearing this call. It's getting louder and louder, like, "Brother Duran," you know, just really pained. And I'm trying to sell it on the fact, like, there's some time here, man. You got to roll. Like, you don't have an infinite amount of time. So he continues running, and he's checking door to door, but kind of going quickly. And he rounds a corner, and as he rounds the corner, he hears, oh crap, I screwed this up. I should have described this earlier. When he fought the imp before, the imp didn't die. It ran. So, like, he had damaged it pretty heavily. The imp did a number on him, but it had damaged him pretty heavily, and the imp turned into a raven and flew out of the cave. So he rounds the corner, and he hears this, like, like it's not a good raven call. He hears raven call, and his thing comes around the corner and just morphs into an imp as it rounds the corner, hits the ground. And what's hilarious is, like, it was supposed to be this, like, big epic little, like, oh, he's still alive, and he just cut him down in one turn, just, like, rolled perfect and smashed him, which was sweet. So he comes around the corner, and he goes down this little narrow hallway, kind of leading downwards, and it's really dark and tight and dingy, and he really can't see much in front of him, but he's got a torch, and he's walking through this torch. And he comes up, and he hears, you can see light coming from under a doorway to his right, and you can hear, like, wind rustling through there, but as he tries to open the door, it's like forced shut, and it will not open. So he's kind of trying to figure out why, what's going on, and then he hears this, like a dull laughter from behind him, and he turns around and goes down this set of stairs, and as he goes down the stairs, there's 2 torches or braziers in the room that should, by any, for any intent and purpose, light this room with no problem. But it's like this choking darkness. As you got closer to the room, it was getting darker and darker, and his torch was doing less and less, even though it was burning the same amount of brightness. So he walks into the room and hears this, like, like really evil sounding laugh, and all the darkness kind of sucks off the walls and pulls up into a humanoid picture, and it was the shadow. He's fighting a shadow, and so the shadow attacks him once, and then I believe it has a bonus action. Where's the card? I have it somewhere. I believe it had a bonus action for, like, disengage or run away and hide or something like that. It could basically turn into shadow and hide in a corner. And he had an ability, which I don't remember what it was, but basically he could sense any kind of undead or like demonic presence, because he is a paladin. So he, like, casts this, and so he can sense where he's hiding, where the shadow's hiding, even though the shadow thinks he's totally hidden. So he does that, and then, like, does something else. I forget what ability it was, but he just decimates this thing in one turn. Rolls like 7d6s and just crushes this thing in one turn. It was super epic. So he smashes it, and it was like all of a sudden all the darkness lifts, and it's well lit. And then there's there's one of those fonts in the one corner. And earlier in that first room with the skeletons, it was basically a healing font. So he had walked up to it and kind of examined it and took a perception check inside of it. and there was the symbol for Helm, which is Duran's patron deity. And the symbol for Helm, I printed it off actually because it'll have some significance later, is this. So it's like an armored gauntlet with an eye in the center. So he sees this at the bottom of it, and then as he, puts his hand in it, some of the scratches and cuts on his hand healed as he puts his hand in it. Then he starts, drinking it, and it heals him totally. It was basically my workaround for not having a party with him, so he could make it through this entire dungeon without getting crushed by one group of people, since there's no other assisting party with him. But it made sense in the theme of the dream, or the nightmarescape, so we'll just roll it. So he goes through the door that was originally being forced shut. Now he finds he can open, and as he opens it, he sees a large armored figure with a hand up like this, and Chul spread, held by, it looks like lightning, like electric energy on each side, and he's just held on both sides and by his feet, and he's kind of suspended above the ground, and he's yelling out in pain, and just, and he sees Duran come through, and he comes running up to the altar, which it was structured like a chapel, sort of. So he runs up to the altar, and the figure kind of turns around and looks at him, and he took a religion test or a check, and he passed it, and he recognized all over the armor of this being was 3 lightning bolts, which is the symbol for Talos, who, if anybody was paying attention earlier in the game, I don't know if I mentioned this or not in one of my earlier videos, but Chul, his patron deity was Talos, or is Talos, but it's hard to, I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to say it right now, but his patron deity is Talos, and so he finds Chul just bound by these energetic, or these magical lightning bolts from either side, and his feet are bound, and he engages combat and attacks Talos, like this god, in his dreamscape. So they start fighting, and I modeled Talos after the Helmed Horror in the monster manual, which basically is an AC of 20, and then I kind of messed around with some of the other stuff, but his HP was 60, which was bad news, especially for one dude. And so they fight for a while, and Duran has, I call it the Shield of the Bulwark, and it was an enchanted shield that he had gotten a couple of games ago, or a couple sessions ago, and basically I think he put his AC up to 19, which was nuts, because it gave you an extra +1 AC on top of the shield, which is +2, and then it gave him a bash ability and some other stuff. And then he cast some other stuff on himself. So basically it was 2 tanks trying to hit each other, and no one could land a hit after a while. I think he has divine, oh crap, it was some kind of divine enchantment on himself. So then his AC was 22 or something, just nuts. So eventually it was getting to the point where I wanted to kind of roll forward, and he knew this was more of a story-driven, on the rails adventure, and I did too. So there was a determined ending to this, because it's a dream, and it's supposed to get a theme and a story element across to the player. And again, Nathan's pretty story-driven, or story-centric as well as I am, so he, we kind of discussed this in the beginning, and he was cool with it, and everything's fine. So anyhow, Talos reaches his hand out and casts, I think it was Dispel or something along that line, and basically just pulls the magical energy of this barrier off of Duran, and just dispels it. And then as he's swinging to land the killing blow, this fist, or the fist of Helm, he knew it because it had the eyeball right here, and it slams into the ground between him and Talos and scoops him up and starts pulling him away as Talos is roaring at him, and he's calling out to him no, take him instead, take my brother, take him instead. And because at this time, Chul is looking at him with tears in his eyes, brother, help me, do not leave me, This is epic, real heart-wrenching part of the story. And as he's getting pulled up by this hand, by the hand of Helm, he looks up at it and says, take him instead. And he hears from Helm, only can be assumed from, says, he is not mine, and pulls him up, and then that's the end of the story. So it was super fun. I'm probably glazed over some stuff. If anybody's confused, feel free to ask me. But it was super fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'm pushing 20 minutes. I'm gonna get out of your hair. But thanks guys so much for watching. Stay tuned. We're gonna be playing in the next few days. It's December 20th today, so Christmas is in 5 days. So it's really hard to get time right now. But after Christmas, we have some guys that are home from college and whatnot, and we're gonna get together and play some. So it's gonna be sweet. Stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Later.